The Ghost in Our Home Chapter 1. The missing puzzle. The first thing Mark noticed was the silence. Not the ordinary quiet of an empty house, but a specific, hollow silence where there should have been sound. He stood in the doorway of his study, coffee mug cooling in his hand, staring at the blank space on the wall. The antique barometer was gone. Not misplaced. Not moved for cleaning. Gone? The rectangular outline of slightly darker wallpaper stared back at him like an accusation. The barometer had been a gift from his grandfather, a man who'd survived 3 wars and believed in tracking atmospheric pressure more than he believed in doctors. When the needle drops, so does trouble, he'd say. Mark had always loved its solid brass fittings, the satisfying click of the needle. "Claire!" he called, his voice echoing through their 4-bedroom colonial. No answer. Claire had left a note on the kitchen island. Gone for a run with Sarah. Back by 10. Love you. It was 10:17. The note was written in her looping, cheerful script. Everything looked normal. Sunlight streamed through bay windows, catching dust motes in the air. The house was tidy, smelling faintly of lemon cleaner, and the lavender candles Claire loved. But the barometer was gone. Mark methodically checked the room. No fallen nails, no debris on the floor. It hadn't fallen. It had been deliberately removed. His logical, engineer's mind began cataloguing. Item 1 barometer, circa 1952. Value sentimental, monetary. Means of removal. Careful, no damage. Motive unknown. A prickle of unease travelled up his spine. He walked through the house, his slippers whispering on hardwood. The living room looked intact, their wedding photo on the mantel, the Art Deco clock ticking steadily. The dining room, the guest room. All normal. He entered their walk-in closet. His side, orderly. Shirts organized by color, suits spaced evenly. Claire's side, a more colorful explosion of fabrics. His eyes scanned the shelves. Something was off. The hat box. The round, vintage hat box she'd bought in Paris on their honeymoon, which she used to store scarves. It wasn't on its usual shelf. Mark pulled out his phone and opened their shared photo album. He'd taken a picture of Claire in this closet just last month, laughing as she tried on a ridiculous wide-brimmed hat. He zoomed in. There, in the background, was the hat box on the 3rd shelf. Now, that shelf was empty. A missing barometer could be explained. Claire might have taken it for cleaning, though she'd never touched it before. But the hat box too. He descended to the basement, his unease hardening into something colder. The basement was his domain, a workshop and storage area. He went directly to the safe, hidden behind a false panel of insulation. He'd installed it himself after the wedding, 4 documents and Claire's grandmother's jewelry. He keyed in the code, their anniversary. 0615. The safe opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the velvet box containing the emerald necklace was there. The passports, the deeds. But the stack of emergency cash, $5,000 in hundreds, wrapped in a rubber band, was gone. The space where it had lain was conspicuously empty. His breath caught. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a pattern. Someone had taken specific items. A distinctive antique, a unique box, untraceable cash. Not a random burglary, nothing else was touched. Someone with knowledge. The garage door rumbled open upstairs. Claire was home. Chapter 2. The Art of Normalcy. Honey, I'm back. Claire's voice floated down the stairs, bright as the sunshine. You'll never believe what Sarah told me about her sister. Mark closed the safe, slid the panel back, and took a deep breath. He arranged his face into what he hoped was a neutral expression before climbing the stairs. Claire stood in the kitchen, pulling a water bottle from the fridge. Her blonde hair was pulled into a high ponytail, damp at the ends. She wore black leggings and a fitted tank top, her face flushed from exercise. She was, as always, effortlessly beautiful. "Hey," he said, kissing her cheek. She smelled of sweat, coconut shampoo, and her signature orange blossom perfume. "Hey, you." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. There was a tightness around them, a subtle tension in her shoulders. "You're up early for a Saturday. Everything okay?" "Just couldn't sleep," he said, leaning against the counter. "Hey, have you seen the barometer? The one from my grandfather." A flicker. So fast he almost missed it. A micro-expression, a slight widening of the eyes, a quick dart of the tongue to moisten her lips. "The barometer." "No, why?" Her tone was casual, too casual. She turned to fill her water bottle at the sink, her back to him. "It's not on the wall in my study." "Oh?" She shrugged, still not facing him. "Maybe the cleaning lady moved it last week. Maria was dusting in there. Maria came every other Thursday. Today was Saturday." "Maybe," Mark said, his voice even. "I'll ask her." "I'm going to shower," Claire announced, pecking him on the lips. Her lips were dry. "Jack's coming over later to watch the game, right?" "Jack?" "His best friend since college." Jack, who'd been his best man. Jack, who had a key to their house for emergencies. "Yeah," Mark said. "He'll be here at 2. "Great. I'll make those spinach artichoke dip things he likes." She bounded up the stairs, her energy seeming suddenly forced. Mark stood in the silent kitchen. Maybe the cleaning lady. A plausible, convenient excuse. The perfect scapegoat for a domestic mystery. He pulled out his phone and texted Maria, a simple question about moving the barometer. Her reply came instantly, in broken English. "No, sir. No toco nada en es cuarto. Prometo. I don't touch anything in that room. I promise." The lie solidified things. Claire had lied. About the barometer. Which meant she likely lied about the hatbox. And the cash. But why? Financial trouble. He logged into their joint banking app on his phone. Savings, checking, investments, all healthy, untouched. No unusual withdrawals. This wasn't about money. He thought of Jack. His coming over felt suddenly loaded. He opened the location sharing app they all used for hiking trips. Claire had shared her location with him and Jack. He checked her location history from her morning run. The map showed her usual route through the neighborhood park. But there was a 40-minute gap, a dead zone with no signal, near the old quarry on the west side of the park. An area with notoriously poor reception. Or an area where someone might turn off their phone. Chapter 3. The uninvited guest Jack arrived precisely at 2, bearing a six-pack of craft IPA and his booming laugh. "Marky. Ready to watch the Lions break your heart again?" Jack was everything Mark wasn't, extroverted, physically imposing, with a constant aura of easy charm. He clapped Mark on the back with a force that would stagger a smaller man. "Always optimistic," Mark said, forcing a smile. Claire emerged from the kitchen, now in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down. She'd applied fresh makeup. "Jack? How's the world of commercial real estate treating its superstar?" "It's treating me to these," Jack laughed, holding up the expensive beers. He hugged Claire, a full-bodied, lingering embrace. Mark watched Claire's hand pat Jack's back twice, then her fingers curled slightly into his shirt before she pulled away. A familiar, intimate gesture. They settled in the den. The game was a blur of noise and color to Mark. He was a spectator in his own life, watching a play unfold. He saw how Claire brought Jack his beer without asking how he wanted it. She knew he preferred a cold glass. He saw how Jack's eyes followed her when she left the room, a look that was more appreciative than friendly. He heard their shared laughter from the kitchen, a private chuckle that seemed to exclude the game on TV. At halftime, Claire brought out the dip. "So, Jack," she said, settling on the couch, closer to Jack's armchair than to Mark's recliner. "How's Melissa?" Jack's wife. A sharp, successful lawyer who traveled constantly. "Oh, you know. Buried in depositions in Chicago. The usual." Jack waved a hand, but a shadow passed over his face. "We're like ships in the night lately." "That's tough," Claire said, her voice dripping with sympathy. She reached over and squeezed Jack's forearm. "You must get so lonely in that big house." The comment hung in the air. Mark took a long sip of beer. "You're welcome here anytime, buddy," he said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. "Thanks, man." Jack's smile didn't reach his eyes either. He turned his attention back to Claire. "So, did you ever find that necklace you were looking for last week?" Claire's smile froze. "Necklace? Yeah, you texted me, remember? You couldn't find that silver one with the blue stone, thought you might have left it at my place after book club." Book club? Claire's monthly book club was at Sarah's house. Not Jack's. The air in the room thickened. Claire's eyes darted to Mark, then back to Jack. "Oh? That? Right? No, I found it. It was in my gym bag." Silly me. Mark felt a cold clarity wash over him. The lie was clumsy, exposed. The pieces, scattered and nebulous before, began to magnetize, pulling toward a single, terrible conclusion. He stood up abruptly. "I'm going to grab another beer. Anyone need anything?" Both shook their heads, caught in the awkwardness Jack had inadvertently created. Mark walked to the kitchen, his mind racing. He leaned against the cold granite countertop, listening to the murmur of their voices in the other room. They were speaking low now, urgently. He pulled out his phone. He opened the home security system app. They had cameras at the front and back doors, but none inside, a concession to privacy Claire had insisted on. He checked the logs. The system was simple. It chimed when exterior doors opened, and a log entry was created. He scrolled back through the timeline. Thursday afternoon. Had been at a site inspection across town from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. The log showed the back door, the kitchen door, opening at 2:17 p.m. It closed again at 3:48 p.m. No front door activity. He had not come home. Claire was supposed to be at a pottery class on Thursdays. He switched to the smart thermostat's history. It showed a temperature setting change at 2:15 p.m. on Thursday. The AC was turned down 2 degrees. It was reset at 3:50 p.m. Someone had been in the house for over an hour and a half when it should have been empty. Someone who knew how to use the thermostat. Someone comfortable enough to stay. The back door. The one hidden from the street by a tall fence. The one Jack used when he came over to borrow tools and didn't want to walk around to the front. Mark felt the world tilt. The missing items not stolen. Removed. A barometer that was a silent witness in his study. A hat box from a honeymoon. Cash that couldn't be traced. They were erasing themselves, piece by piece, from his life. Preparing. The sound of Claire's laughter, bright and false, cut through his thoughts. He looked at the phone in his hand. It was no longer just a phone. It was a forensic tool. And he was now an investigator in his own marriage. Chapter 4. The digital footprint. After Jack left with more backslapping and hollow promises to get together soon, the house settled into a strained quiet. Claire was overly chatty, detailing plans for redecorating the guest room. Mark responded with monosyllables, his mind working. That night, as Claire slept, her breathing deep and steady, Mark slid out of bed. He took his laptop into the study, the empty space on the wall a dark square in the moonlight. He started with the phone bill. They were on a family plan. He logged into the carrier's website, his fingers trembling slightly. He navigated to the detailed call and text logs. The data presented itself in cold, clinical columns. Numbers, times, durations. The pattern was a sledgehammer. There were dozens of texts and calls between Claire's number and Jack's. Not clustered around book club nights or group gatherings. They were scattered throughout every day. Early morning texts at 6:45 a.m., when Jack knew Mark was in the shower. Long calls in the mid-afternoon, when Mark was at work. A flurry of texts last Thursday from 2:30 to 3:45 p.m., the exact window the security log showed the back door open. He opened their shared iCloud account. Another of Claire's ideas for transparency. He navigated to find my iPhone and checked location history for her devices. He cross-referenced. Thursday, 2:05 p.m. Her phone location left the street of the community center where her pottery class was held. 2:17 p.m. Her phone arrived at their home address. 3:48 p.m. Her phone left their home. 4 p.m. Her phone arrived back at the community center. A sickening theater. She'd driven home, met someone, then returned to her class. He needed more. He needed to see the content. He remembered Claire's old iPad, a device she rarely used since getting a new one last year. It was probably still signed into her a message. He crept back into the bedroom, his heart pounding. Claire sighed in her sleep and turned over. The charging cable was plugged into her nightstand, but the new iPad was there. The old one, he knew, was in the drawer of her desk in the corner of the room. He retrieved it silently, a ghost in his own home. Back in the study, he powered it on. It connected to Wi-Fi, and after a moment, messages began to sync. They flooded in, a torrent of betrayal. Jack, today, 10:05 a.m. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You were incredible. Claire. Me too. It's getting so hard to pretend. I looked at him at breakfast and just felt nothing. Jack, soon. We just need to be careful. He can't suspect. Claire. He's clueless. An engineer. He only sees what he can measure. He asked about the barometer today. I blamed Maria. Jack, good? Did you get the rest of the cash? Claire, yes. It's with the other things. I hate taking it, but we'll need it. Jack? Well paid all back when we're settled. This is for us. For our future. The messages went back months. Planning. Secrecy. Derision for him. Talk of a future in another city, maybe the coast. They'd been meeting here, in his house, in his bed. Using his absence as their opportunity. The book club meetings, the girls' nights, the long runs, all covers. The final piece fell into place with a text from 2 weeks ago. Claire. I'll start moving the important things. The sentimental stuff first, the things he'll notice but can't prove. It'll condition him to think he's misplacing things, or that there's a simple explanation. By the time I'm gone, he'll be so confused he won't know which way is up. They weren't just having an affair. They were executing an exit strategy. A psychological operation designed to gaslight him, to drain their shared assets subtly, and to leave him doubting his own sanity before she vanished with his best friend. The rage that rose in Mark was not hot and blinding, but cold and crystalline. It sharpened his senses, focused his mind. They thought he was clueless. An engineer who only saw what he could measure. They had underestimated what an engineer could build when provided with data, motive, and a broken heart. He wouldn't confront them. Not yet. That would be their script. Tears, denials, or a cold admission and a swift departure. They would win. They would have their narrative. He needed to rewrite the ending. He carefully wiped the iPad, returned it to the exact position in the drawer. He was a ghost, gathering evidence. The next phase required more than data. It required a performance. Chapter 5. The performance. The following Monday, Mark began to act. He became the perfect, slightly distracted husband. He misplaced his own keys, complained about his memory. "I could have sworn I left my briefcase right here," he'd muse, while Claire watched him with a mixture of pity and concealed triumph. He fed her lies. He mentioned a big project at work that might require unexpected travel. He invented a problem with one of his senior engineers, a man named Greg, who was becoming unreliable. He shared these fictional stresses over dinner, watching her pretend to listen while her eyes glazed over, already miles away with Jack. He was laying the groundwork. He also began his counter-investigation in earnest. He bought a tiny, high-resolution voice-activated recorder online. He placed it in the air vent facing their bed, camouflaged by dust. He installed a discreet, Wi-Fi-enabled nanny cam inside a fake electrical outlet in the living room, positioned to see the couch. He was building his own case file. He withdrew $10,000 from a personal, non-joint investment account, money Claire didn't know about. He rented a small, anonymous storage unit under a fake business name. He began moving his own most precious items there. His father's watch, his graduate thesis, his photo albums from before the marriage. He was a soldier preparing to scorch the earth, but first, he needed to rescue what he valued. One afternoon, he followed Jack. He used an old burner phone with a basic GPS tracker app. He'd slipped the tracker into the wheel well of Jack's BMW when he'd borrowed a socket wrench last week. Jack drove from his office to a mid-range hotel near the airport at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. Mark sat in his car 2 blocks away, watching the trackers remain stationary for 93 minutes. He didn't need to see Claire arrive. He knew. The evidence mounted. Audio recordings of Claire on the phone with Jack, her voice soft and loving in a way he hadn't heard in years. Video of them on the couch, kissing passionately one afternoon when Mark was supposedly at a client lunch. They were growing bolder, believing their gaslighting was working. Mark's heart turned to stone. Every tender memory, every shared joke, every sacrifice, it was all retroactively poisoned. He felt like an archaeologist excavating the ruins of his own life, finding only betrayal in every layer. He knew their plan was accelerating. Claire mentioned offhandedly that her sister in Denver was having a hard time and might need her to visit for a few weeks soon. A trial separation narrative was being constructed. It was time to force their hand.